Hi, my name is Barrie Sands, and my essay is called My Relationship with a Guy Named COVID. At first, you were an idea, a potential that I have yet to meet. I heard so many stories about you. Everyone seemed to know of you, but didn't really know you. You were so mysterious. When you first came into my life, I was nervous and intrigued by the thought of you. I wanted to know more about you, to get to know you better. It was exciting, mysterious, and a little scary. I felt so vulnerable and so exposed. The essence of danger was seductive and attractive. The newness was so intoxicating. Your presence in my life brought out both the worst and the best of me. I found myself making sacrifices for you and our relationship. I began to explore my own beliefs and convictions, and at times it led me to places that were filled with trepidation and uncertainties. I found myself making excuses for you, but it was okay, I wanted to. And it felt like something I just had to do. You were so charismatic and compelling.
Barrie, you are a doctor, so how did you determine that this was the format that your essay was going to take, that this was kind of the approach you wanted to have in dealing with COVID?
Well, it's an interesting question because I actually wrote this over a year ago. And it was probably about February or March of last year that I wrote it. I was inspired by whatever was happening around us in the moment where everything was sort of becoming very new and the lockdowns were starting and people were wearing masks and they were figuring out what kind of masks to wear. It's all very, very new. And so I wrote about it. It reminded me of a relationship and how it was going to unfold throughout the process. So it was already written. When I was asked, to submit an essay for this Decameron project, I was like, oh, well, I have it. And so then I just submitted it.
Do you think being a doctor made you see that more as a relationship than maybe somebody else might?
I don't think so. I think it was just my creative side of it and seeing the play on the words and the feelings of a relationship. It just felt very similar to me, how I viewed the COVID pandemic, so to speak, or the arrival of the virus in our lives as a relationship that I feel a lot of people go through.
That approach made it feel very intimate, like you feel like you've pulled us into a very private kind of moment.
Well, I feel like we've all at some point in our lives have gone through a relationship that started out like really fiery and passionate and filled with uncertainties and unknowns. But it was maybe not based upon anything that had meaning, or it lacked meaningfulness. And so that the story just came out as more of a creative outlet.
And you said you started this a little over a year ago. When you submitted this, was there a point at which you revised it or rethought parts of this relationship?
No, it felt perfect when I wrote it, and it felt really complete. And it's interesting because as you go through the evolution of the relationship, it seems very familiar to a lot of people, how it evolves, where you start out this relationship that is amazing, and then it evolves into something that becomes a little bit less than you thought. And then you start to question your role that you play in it. Am I doing the right thing? Did I lose myself in this relationship? How do I gain myself back? and who did I become in this? And it's very, very similar to how we all thinking and navigating through this. And in essence, after a whole year goes by, it seems to be even that much more impactful in the wording, because it still lays true to the feelings that I feel like we're all experiencing as we're, navigating through this year and this COVID pandemic, so to speak.
And have you written any other things about the pandemic besides this? It was just a moment of inspiration.
It was just a moment of inspiration. Yeah, I like to write, so I write about a lot of the little things here and there.
And how has writing this for part of this San Diego Decameron project been for you?
Very exciting. It was an honor to be chosen to be part of this and to just share my thoughts and my creativity with people, and to be honored to be selected as a part of this. And I'm very excited to hear all the other works that are being submitted.
And this is, of course, playing off of the original Decameron, which were people dealing with the Black Plague, or the Black Death and the plague back then. How does it feel to you kind of connecting these two events centuries apart?
Well, it almost feels like an honor, because it is, I wasn't there in the Black Plague, and this is, not the same. Our lives are different. However, we are all being mindful about the stories that we tell ourselves, during this time. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share my story, my creativity, because I feel like if I was locked away in a hillside away from the plague, where amongst people that were telling stories, I'd want something to be uplifting, in a sense where it empowers you to be greater than you think you are.
And how do you think sharing these kind of stories and kind of the way you're processing the pandemic, how do you think that can help other people who are, sheltering at home or in quarantine, or might be on their own, or maybe with a small family? How do you think this kind of writing can help others?
Are you inferring my writing in particular, or just the writings in general?
I think this whole project, like having a collection of stories or essays where people are sharing their very different experiences.
Yeah.
How can that help other people who may feel very, who may feel very isolated?
Well, it gives them a sense of connection, because I feel like when you hear someone speak about a story, especially the one that I have written about this relationship, people can say, oh yeah, I know that, I feel that, I could see that. And so there is a connection where you don't feel as alone anymore, because we're not as alone as we think we are. And even though we may be dealing with certain aspects of isolation, there is definitely a community that we are, and a collective mindset, if nothing else, where you might see a piece of yourself in someone else's work, and you just feel that much more connected.
All right, I want to thank you very much for talking about your writing.
Well, thank you so much for having me.